Hey gang, it's your friend Logan Albright here, back with another book review for you. And today I'm talking about James Joyce's monumental work, Ulysses. But before I do that, I got a quick announcement. My latest work that I've written, Conform or Be Cast Out, The Literal Demonization of Nonconformists, is now available for pre-order on Amazon.com or wherever fine books are sold. This is a book about the history of people who have been persecuted by society for being different. And not only persecuted for being different, but being identified with the literal devil, servants of evil, things like that. So it's got a lot about the Inquisition, it's got about the Salem witch trials, it's got the Satanic Panic of the 80s, all stuff like that. A bunch of stuff about interesting medical conditions. Basically the history of people going after anyone who's been different and not only just disliking them, but saying that they're the embodiment of evil itself, which I find a really interesting subject. If you find it an interesting subject, please pre-order it now, because pre-orders help me a lot in terms of determining sales rank and making sure people see the book and can find it. That'd be great. And in celebration of this, if you're interested in the book, I'm doing a giveaway. So if you would be so good as to subscribe to the channel and then comment below, I am a nonconformist, I will give you a copy of this book. I'll select a name at random and send out that copy to a lucky winner. So please do that now, and now we'll get on with the regular review. Okay, let's talk about Ulysses. Now, I have a lot to say about this book. This is actually my second time reading it. I read it before many years ago. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, something like that. And I'm kind of fascinated by James Joyce in general. He's one of those authors that I can't really wrap my head around or figure out. I know he's very highly acclaimed, and I think he's a very good writer in many ways, but his books are confusing to me. So I read Dubliners, which I really liked. I thought it was a very well-written, kind of straightforward book of short stories, really good. And I read Finnegan's Wake, which was impossible to read, and I actually really enjoyed parts of it. I thought it's a really fun book in a lot of ways, but it's so impenetrable and difficult, and it took me a long time to get through. But I'm fascinated by it. And in between reading those two, I had read Ulysses, which is sort of in between those two in difficulty. It's definitely not as hard as Finnegan's Wake, but it's definitely a lot harder than Dubliners. And I didn't really like it, and I thought, you know, I must be missing something here because everybody loves Ulysses. I went on YouTube and I looked for reviews and I couldn't find a single negative review of Ulysses. Everything was praising it to the high heavens, saying what an amazing, wonderful book it is. And one of my favorite people, Stephen Fry, the actor, broadcaster, commentator, writer, it's his favorite book of all time, and he's done a documentary about how great it is and how much he loves it. So I thought, I must not be getting what this is all about. I have to give it another shot. So I decided to read the whole thing again, and I just finished reading it again, and I remain kind of unchanged in my opinion of it. So this is going to be an unpopular opinion video where I talk about Ulysses, about the things that I don't really like about it, and why I don't consider it to be an amazing novel the way everyone else seems to. Okay, so first of all, Ulysses, for those who don't know, is the story of Leopold Bloom, an Irishman, and his day walking around Dublin and experiencing the city. It is very loosely modeled after Homer's The Odyssey, hence the title Ulysses. The chapter layout is sort of parallel, but you would never know that unless you were told. Like, it takes some deep analysis to figure that out, and you don't need to know anything about the Odyssey to read Ulysses. But that's sort of the structure of it. It's laid out along those lines. And whereas the Odyssey is an adventure story with lots of crazy things happening, very little happens in Ulysses. It's basically a slice of life and a portrait of what Dublin is like and a portrait of what this guy's life is like, and it's just him wandering around. Now, like a lot of James Joyce's work, it's written in a very strange style. Parts of it are pretty easy to read, parts of it are pretty straightforward, but he does this stream of consciousness narrative where you get inside the character's head and it just rambles on, and it goes from, you know, random word association, connecting dots, remembering things, and it's often very hard to follow. It's also a very erudite work. There's a lot of references to other things in there, and it's considered to be a difficult book. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about this is in Stephen Fry's review of it, and in a lot of other reviews I saw people saying, oh, it's such a shame that people think this is a difficult book. It's not a difficult book. It's a fun book. It's an easy read. Dive in, have fun with it. It's a joy. And I am here to tell you it is a difficult book. I don't care any way you slice it. You may think it's a great novel, and that's fine. You may think it's the best book ever, and that's fine. But it's not an easy read, okay? To start off with, Joyce plays fast and loose with the traditional rules of writing and grammar. To give an extreme example, the last chapter of the book, which is about 40 pages long, has no punctuation in it, and I think only 3 or 4 line breaks in it at all. I mean, that's by definition hard to read. Punctuation exists for a reason. It's there to clarify the sentence structure, the rhythm of it, the pauses, the clauses, all that stuff. You take all that out and you lose a lot of information, and it becomes very hard to follow. And so this soliloquy is like, it's really long. It's like 40 pages of just uninterrupted text with no breaks whatsoever. So that's unquestionably difficult. He makes up a lot of his own words. He uses a lot of other foreign languages in there. If you don't know those foreign languages, those parts are going to be hard to read. And a lot of them are not common foreign languages. The Irish language, for example, Irish Gaelic pops up quite a bit. And I actually studied a little bit of it, so I was able to understand a little bit of it. But still, like, the average reader is not going to get the Irish Gaelic stuff. So, I mean, to say that's easy to read is insane to me. Then there's the stream of consciousness, which is rambling and loose and hard to follow. And it's sometimes difficult to tell what's going on, you know. There's a wonderful video on YouTube called Ulysses Summarized in 18 Minutes, which I referred to frequently when reading this book to help me kind of grasp what was going on in each chapter. And it's just, you know, it's not that easy. When it switches points of view a lot, you don't really know whose point of view you're coming from. It jumps around in time a lot. It's quite difficult to know what's going on. And then the other thing about it is there's a lot of very educated references in it, which you need to be pretty educated to get. And I think of myself as a well-read, educated man, and I'm sure there's a ton of stuff in here I'm missing. To give an example, the first time I read it, I hadn't heard of this, and then the second time I read it, I had, so I was able to notice something that I didn't notice before. There's a lot of talk about a kind of early 20th century occultist named George Russell, who goes by the pen name A.E., and he hung out with this famous Russian occultist named Madame Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky, and there's a lot of references to those two, and they talk about A.E. and they talk about Blavatsky, and if you don't know who those people are, you're going to be lost, and I happen to know who those people are now. I didn't know it the first time I read it, but now I know, and so that was a lot more comprehensible to me. But there's a ton of stuff like that in here. So the idea that you're going to be able to pick up on all that just as a casual reader is insane. You're going to miss a lot. And it's kind of the book, I think the book probably requires a lifetime of study to really understand, the same way that Finnegan's Wake does. But overall, I didn't find it as fun as Finnegan's Wake because it's not quite as playful. It's a little more serious. So why do I not respond to this book, and why do I not love it the way other people love it? Well, I'll start off by saying it's a frustrating book because Joyce is a great writer. There's snatches of prose in here that I think are beautiful and wonderful and brilliant. And I think he's capable of writing really great, evocative, kind of unique and interesting prose. And I think he has a gift there. And so I really love that. But then so much of that is just swallowed under this self-indulgence. I think it's a really self-indulgent novel because he goes on and on and on about nothing. Nothing happens in this novel. It has a flaw that a lot of 20th century literature I have a problem with, which is that it's dealing with small things. I like novels that deal with big, romantic, interesting, world-shaking events and things. Tales of daring do and heroism, that sort of thing. This is very mundane and pedestrian. It's a small man living a small life, wandering around Dublin. There's nothing noble about him. There's nothing, glorious about him. He's not doing anything. He's a cuckold. His wife is cheating on him. And he's not that innocent himself. He's just kind of pathetic. It's sort of a pathetic life. And I don't really like reading about pathetic characters and pathetic people. It's not interesting to me. So that's one of the problems I have with it. And then, like I said, the self-indulgence, the third to last chapter in the book, the last chapter in part 2 of the book is written in this sort of play-like style where it's got all the headings of the people who are talking, and it's a dialogue that goes on, and it's like 75 pages long. It's ridiculously long, and it's so hard to tell what's going on. It's just rambling conversation, and it doesn't convey anything useful to me. I just found it very boring and very confusing and distracting and unnecessarily long. If you want to do a little bit of that as an experiment for like 10 or 15 pages, fine, I'm with you. But dragging it on for 75 pages, I just see no point in that. I think this book really needed an editor. And I know I'm going to get ripped apart for this because there's going to be people in the comments who say, well, this, you missed the whole thing. You're too stupid to understand it. That has this whole deep meaning that you're not getting, and it's so brilliant and joyful and a celebration of life. People say it's a very life-affirming book, but I'm sorry, I don't see it. And I want to provide a voice for the people like me out there who don't see it and who are confused by it and who feel stupid because they don't get this book, and let them know that they're not alone. There's other people like you who have tried to read this book. I read it twice all the way through, and by about, halfway to 2/3 of the way in, I just lost the will to live. I think the first couple chapters are pretty interesting. I kind of like them, but it just goes on for so long and so little happens, and it's so difficult to follow, and all the punctuation missing is so difficult. So I don't know, man. I like to be humble enough to think that if everyone agrees on something and I disagree, that maybe I'm the one who's wrong and I'm not seeing something that's there. But I really tried, and I don't get it. So that's how I feel about Ulysses. Maybe I will return to Joyce at some point. I still haven't read Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, which I hear is a little bit more digestible and good. And like I said, it's a frustrating thing for me because I feel that I'm missing something. I feel that people are seeing something that I'm not seeing. But to me, it just feels like depressing, kind of pessimistic, self-indulgent nonsense. And I know people say it's an optimistic book because the last word of the book is yes. But I find it pretty degrading to the human character, and I'm just not into it. But I would like to dip into more Joyce because I do think he's a talented writer, and when he's writing in a comprehensible way with a better editor, I think he's pretty good. So I will look into that. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. Please comment below and let me know what I'm missing here. Why should I be liking Ulysses more than I'm liking it? I think it's just my aversion to 20th century literature in general. I'm not averse to like long tangents. You know, I've said before, my favorite author is Victor Hugo, who goes on like 70-page tangents talking about something totally unrelated to the plot of the novel. And I'm fine with that because they're very well written and it's interesting to me, the things that he's talking about. But so I'm not like, I don't need a short, easily digestible book in order to be happy. I don't need, I read lots of long books. I read lots of difficult books and I like them. But just this one, it just doesn't do it for me. I don't see the joy in it. I don't take any pleasure out of it. So you guys will have to educate me on that and tell me what's going on there. In the meantime, leave your comments if you enjoyed this video, which I doubt you did because everyone's going to disagree with this. But if you did, please give it a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications. Leave me a comment down below. I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts. And remember, if you want a copy of my new book, Conform or Be Cast Out, The Literal Demonization of Nonconformists, comment down below, I'm a nonconformist, and subscribe to the channel, and you will be entered to win a copy. Thank you so much. I've been Logan Albright. I hope this has been useful and enjoyable to you, and I will be back next week with another book review for your viewing pleasure. Thanks so much. Take it easy.